I'm so excited to chat with you. No, it definitely wasn't. I kind of fell into acting through doing modeling when I was really kind of 13, 14. I didn't do drama at school. It was nothing that I really thought about until I was already doing a bit of modeling, and my agent at the time was like, "Hey, we've got this audition for a soap opera, and it's good for networking. Just go." And I wasn't prepared. I was really lucky to have booked it. And once I booked that, it was 6 episodes for Neighbours, and halfway through that, I was like, "Oh, this is what I want to do. This is it." Um, and then everything kind of came from there. I was lucky enough to be called back to Neighbours for another 6 months, and really got to hone my craft, got to work on acting, and be in the presence of a lot of really talented people. And from there, the goal was always to go to America. So yeah, it certainly was something that I didn't plan, but as soon as I was doing it, that was all I cared about. Yeah, well, I mean, each character is different. There's certainly a process that I kind of try and follow, and Larry Moss he's a great coach, and he has a lot of great insight as to how to prepare for a character. And one of those things, I can't remember what he calls it, but it's basically you find what your character is. You say, I am this person, and here are 5 adjectives that describe who I am in my world. And I usually try and do that, as well as kind of chat with the creators about who this person is, and really kind of delve into what makes them tick, what music they like to listen to, what their overall objective is for the whole season, if it's a TV show or film. Whatever the journey is for the character, it's really important to find out those circumstances and then build your performance around that. So that's really what I tried to do. Like, for example, with Marcus, it was really, finding a phrase that you can knuckle into is really helpful. And for Marcus, with him and Ginny, it's pretty much, I'm going to be on your life. As soon as he sees her, that's all that consumes him, is just, I'm going to be in your life, no matter what capacity it is. I love you. So, yeah, I think those are the sorts of things that I try and consider when I'm trying to prepare for a role. And obviously the script is number one, and what the creators want is also number one. And then everything else kind of comes from that. Another interesting thing is trying to find out what their physicality is. For example, Marcus can't stop moving, and he always has to have a pen in his hand. He always has to have something, unless he's with Ginny. And then Ginny, he's calm, and he's still. Just little physical things that might actually help tell the story is always something to keep in mind. Really, we tried to put in as much effort as we could to get it as authentic and real as possible. But the biggest thing about this storyline and me coming to it was it just shone a spotlight on my own privilege, and how much I had never had to consider how children of deaf adults or deaf adults had to communicate with their families. Deaf culture isn't really a monolith, and that was another thing that I learned, is that it kind of ties in with your own identity for deaf people. And a deaf person in America will have a completely different experience to a deaf person in Australia or in Europe or in wherever. It really kind of comes down to us portraying one version of a deaf family, and trying to do that as authentically as possible. And what we did was we had ASL instructors on set who took us through all of our lines. Our father, Chris, the actor who plays our father, Chris, is deaf himself, and he was also helping us out with any little tweaks to make sure that we got it correctly, and just really making sure that we were authentic and as honest as possible, because that's what the show at its core is about, is reflecting life truthfully and honestly, and wanting to make our audience feel seen. And hopefully we did that justice. Thank you. That means a lot, because that was the goal. It wasn't hard to connect to, because I know so many guys like Marcus, and also I relate to a lot of what he was feeling. You know, what Marcus is feeling. He's going through so much. Um, I guess it was my initial, like, when upon reading the first couple scripts, I did read that, oh man, this guy's mean. This guy is flippant. He's um, pretty selfish. And at first I was quite reticent to go, okay, well, how is showing this on screen going to help? And then the more I read, and the more I discovered of who this character is, the more it shows that he's putting that on, and there's a really deeply vulnerable, deeply sensitive person under there, which I thought, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what we need to represent for young men, and to show young men, because you're right. I mean, masculinity is not just the tough guy stuff, or treating women with disrespect. It is, you know, we need to communicate to young boys or young men, that it's okay to be vulnerable, and it's okay to have insecurities, but it's not okay to use those to hurt other people. So I was thrilled to see that in the script, and I found it an honor to kind of try and portray that. I'd certainly related to a lot of my own experiences with Marcus's mental health and Marcus's struggle. I was very similar to him at that age. So that was less of a challenge, but it was also a privilege to be able to draw from my own experience. That weirdly came kind of through Ginny and Georgia. Anya Adams was the wonderful director for our pilot on Ginny and Georgia, and the second episode, I believe. And I think it was halfway through the pandemic, she reached out and was like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, nothing. It's the pandemic." And she goes, "Cool, well, I'm working on a show, and I think you could be interesting for it." So she pitched me for it. And it was Zoe's Extraordinary Playlist. So I was very thankful that she got our foot in the door, and then I auditioned for it. I got a call back, and I was lucky enough that they wanted to choose me. And it was so much fun. It's such a fun set. It shows in the work, in that everyone is so happy to be telling that story and having so much fun singing and really living in that world. I'm always interested in things. I'm never one to say, "Oh, that's that," and I don't want to do it. You know, I always want to take projects as they come. I'd certainly never planned to do a musical, and I'm certainly not trained in musical theatre. It was a completely new avenue and a new experience for me. I play music, and I'm fairly experienced in being able to play instruments and sing in bands and perform and stuff, but actually to do it in a musical theatre setting is a completely different skill. So I was quite nervous to take that on, but I was in the best hands over there. The choreographer Mandy Moore and the vocal coach Charlie Alterman really take you on and find your strengths and find what you can work with to create a really nice performance, which is amazing. I was so lucky to have them in my corner. And I had a blast. I really, really enjoyed it. And it's kind of opened me up to thinking maybe I could do more musicals in the future. Whereas beforehand, I had kind of written it off and just gone, "Oh, no, it's not for me because I'm not trained and I don't know how to do it." But now I feel like I could, maybe, question mark, I don't know. Well, I mean, for Zoe's, it had nothing to do with me. Zoe's was successful before I came on, and it will be successful after. I was just along for the ride, and I was so happy to be there. And how could you not? That wasn't a surprise at all. It was just, it's such a well-made show. It has so much heart and so much humor and so much drama. Every episode has made me laugh out loud, and every episode has made me cry, which is exactly what I want. So that wasn't a surprise at all. And I was just so thrilled to go and be a part of such a stellar show, because it is a stellar show. And for Ginny and Georgia, I am completely overwhelmed and completely head over heels, so grateful for everyone, and didn't it, like, it's beyond anything I could have ever imagined. I'm so thrilled that people are resonating with it, and so thrilled that the show has touched so many people as it has, because that's the goal, is to reach out to people and make them feel seen. And I'm really excited that we get to do more. I'm buzzing. I don't know. As an actor, I don't know. I've become fairly superstitious and try not to anticipate anything. You kind of prepare for the best, plan for the worst, and kind of just put your head down, keep your fingers crossed, and go ahead. So I really wasn't trying to think of how it was going to be received. I was hopeful, and I was being as superstitious as possible, really. But I didn't expect it, and it was so gratifying and really wonderful to see how much people had resonated with the show, and I'm so thrilled and so thankful. I was very lucky. I'd spoken to a few people, and the best advice that I kind of got for LA specifically is it's a really beautiful city and it's a beautiful place, but you have to know what you want to be doing, who you want to be around, and what you'd like to do. If you know those three things, this city is amazing. But if you don't, it's too big and it's too hard to find those things. You really need to know yourself before you come to this city. Otherwise, it's too easy to get swept up into the crazy world, because it is a crazy city. But for example, if you're a surfy, beachy kind of Bondi Aussie kind of guy, then you've got the whole coast to kind of find your people. But if you're a artsy hipster kind of guy, Silver Lake is a cool place to go, and downtown is great. And if you like clubs and you like bars, then West Hollywood is perfect for you. LA really is just, it's one city with about 15 different personalities, and you can find what suits you the best. You just have to know what that is. So I was very lucky that I didn't have too much of a culture shock. And I think what those culture shocks that you hear about comes down to is expectation. If you come to LA or come to Hollywood expecting really clean streets, palm trees, and lush, beautiful, preened streets, but you go to Hollywood, it's going to be very different, because Hollywood isn't necessarily what you see in the movies. It can be grubby, it can be dirty, it can be gritty, which is cool, in my opinion, and it's very interesting. It's just not what people expect. So people come home to Australia and they go, "Oh no, I really didn't like it, man. Like it sucked." And you go, "Well, where did you go?" You go, "Hollywood." You go, "Yeah, of course, because that's what Hollywood is." But they were expecting, if they'd gone to Beverly Hills, they would have had a great time. So I think a lot of that comes down to expectation, and I was very fortunate that I had the right people pointing me in the right direction, so I didn't have too many culture shocks. Yeah, I mean, my family and friends and all of that sort of stuff is number one. I always miss them, and I think about them every day. But Melbourne has such an intrinsic cafe culture, and is very centered around coffee and food. And you would go and you meet someone for a coffee in the morning, then you go get lunch, and then you probably meet someone at the bar in the evening. I remember I was on a flight to Melbourne, and I had a guy from San Francisco next to me, and he was saying, "Well, what's good to do in Melbourne?" And we're like, "What's great?" And I go, "Oh, this place is great for breakfast. This place is really good for lunch. If you like bars, here's this one, this one, this one, this one, this one, this one." And he goes, "Ah, cool, but what else is there?" And I had to pause for a second, because I was so taken aback. And it was kind of a moment of realization where I went, "Oh, we are such a foodie, coffee, bar centric city," that it took me a moment to really kind of think about what else to do. Melbourne has so many things. There are, don't get me wrong, there are a lot, but I certainly think the food and the cafe culture is what I miss the most, because it's here in LA, but you got to drive and you got to find and scope the places out. Whereas Melbourne, anywhere you kind of go, there will be a good coffee shop somewhere. What's next is Ginny and Georgia season two. We've got the green light, and I'm so excited to come back and tell more of that story. I genuinely can't wait. And in terms of things I want to do, I really want to do more films. That's where my heart is, and I had the best time making All the Bright Places. And I just want to do more of that. I want to tell more kind of uh, centralized, more you know gritty kind of stories like Ginny and Georgia. I'd love to do more of that, and love to do more films. That's kind of where my head is at.